Hello. I hope you are doing fine right now. Sorry to announce that Michał decided to get sick. It was out of his power, and I needed to step in quickly, so I hope this will also interest you. So maybe this time we will not talk about Kubernetes, about coding. We will talk about animals, and especially pandas. A quick word about me. I'm the organizer of this, and I used to be a DevOps engineer, and now I'm team lead engineering, and also I carry a position of a big panda. Where do I work? You already met my colleague Wolfram. So what I can add to this, what he presented, is that it's very cool because vacation is our job. A bit more about the tech stack we have. So we have 13 development teams. We span our infrastructure across many Google projects. We have AWS projects, one on-site Xen farm. And yesterday I checked that we have more than 550 virtual machines and 2 Kubernetes clusters running about 1,200 pods. So this is quite a scale. And a bit of a history. I need to ask you for forgiveness for my drawing. My wife was laughing at me when she saw it. Once upon a time at HolidayCheck, we had like normal ops situation where we have a fortress, and the residents of the fortress were operations people, sysadmins, and we have a line of developers queuing up to service desk asking for anything they need, from the database to firewall change. And management saw it was not efficient. So they started to figure out what to do with it. And there was a buzzword called DevOps. Yeah, let's do DevOps. How do we do it? So let's take away some people from the fortress and let's put them into the teams so they can actually interact with each other. And this actually is a first recommended step when you want to adopt a DevOps culture. You put developers and sysadmins in the same room, you lock the door, throw the key out, and you start praying that they will talk to each other. Also, it had some pitfalls. It was good, but it introduced also some problems. So the plan was good, but adding the human factor, we got several scenarios of how it could develop. First, teams doing fine. They were getting along, they started cooperating, everything was smooth. But in many teams, we noticed that, like maybe we not, but the manager noticed that we did not get rid of the silo, operations and silo called developers, but we granulated the silo to inside the team. So inside the team, we had plannings when there were separate swim lines for operations tasks. So we had refinements for developers and set of tasks that ops guy would do. The other scenario was when we were having a junior systems engineer in a team of senior developers. And this was like, hey, we are altering prod config, type in your password here. And actually, this was like one of the first interactions when I started to work at HolidayCheck, when my friends asked me to type in sudo password. So I asked, why? Because we need to debug something and we need to increase verbosity of Tomcat logging right on the console of a production server, handling 30 million unique visitors a month. On the other hand, if we had control freaks among the operations, we had people like saying developers that these are my toys, do not touch them. You can ask me what to provide you something, but I decide if I do it. We also grew in size, and this introduced much more problems. This is actually a photo from our summer party at the ship. The other problems were, in some teams, there were not that demands for a DevOps, for infrastructure work. if a team had to maintain a page displaying hotel pictures, then they needed only some database, some pipeline, and several microservices. Nothing complex. So in that teams, if they had a dedicated DevOps engineer on site, this person started to code because he was bored. On the other hand, other DevOps engineers were supporting 2 to 3 development teams, Scrum teams, just because there were not enough in their location. We have multiple locations, and at that point we tried to be co-located as a teams. Some teams were not that lucky to actually get a DevOps engineer, so they fell back to the ticket ops, so going to the fortress, to the small window and asking for stuff. On top of that, because we were covering many things on our own, plus we were co-located, it resulted in very little knowledge transfer. Also, we had problems with handovers. So for me personally, it was like I was supporting 3 teams, 2 of them in Poznań and 1 remotely in Munich. And I was taking part in the project called Dust. If you are interested about what we did in Kubernetes, Google my name on YouTube, or find it on YouTube, and there is a recording. Nevertheless, having those 3 teams, let's assume that I want to go for a vacation, because everybody wants to go on a vacation sometime. So I needed to find a person or people to take over my 3 teams. And those people, most of the time, had their 3 teams. So I would own a big crate of beer to someone who would help me with that problem. But let's assume I found. And so this is one. But second, how to transfer the knowledge, because we do the stuff on our own and we are pretty much independent. It also led to many of us fixing the same problem in parallel. So it turned out that sometimes to transfer knowledge when I'm going on a vacation for 2 weeks took an additional week actually, with meetings and stuff. And that made me think I needed to cope somehow with it, also with managing those teams. So I figured out that maybe for my teams, I will try to do it this way. I will try to cope with each team independently and find a way to cooperate with them. So with one team, it appeared that I only need to take part in dailies. And that was all. I knew what they are about to do. It was cool. With the second one, I had a friend I was having a coffee with every day or every second day, and he updated me. And the third team was actually not that needy for the infrastructure. So we agreed that they will call me whenever they have something in their mind. So I managed to do it. And then I started to think, what if I could replicate my approach to all the teams in the company? So we had this internal conference that happened last year in Turkey, where we gather, all IT gathers in one big hotels, and we have a few-day conference. And I started talking with my team lead, Nikolai, who challenged me a bit. And together we came up with a draft of a solution, which was like this. Having the DevOps structure, we could actually detach the DevOps engineers from the development teams and to form a floating group of consultants where each of us would have a specified contact teams, but we are not team members, so we are not obliged to attend every meeting, which was also a big problem for the people. If you have 3 teams that are going in a Scrum mode, working in a Scrum mode, then you need to attend every meeting, and basically time for work is like 20%. Also, as we have the fortress still running, because we have the core team managing the core infrastructure, we, as the consultant team, would have a close connection with the core team to update our development contact teams with policies and gather requirements and cluster them to introduce bigger changes. So the concept was for each of us not to have more than 2-3 contact teams, to keep up with what the team is working on. So I didn't want to say that for each team you have to attend a daily. I figured out that most of the time that there's a quote from one management book that there's nothing more unfair than treating everyone equally. So we decided not to design how people should interact with the contact teams. We rather wanted them to figure it out on their own, and we require them to know what their teams are working on. Then, how to work on everyday basis. I decided to split tasks into two categories. First, called quick wins. So quick wins are tasks that that are like restarting a server, altering a firewall rule, something you can do in less than an hour, let's say. There are also bigger tasks, and we decided for knowledge sharing purpose and minimizing the buzz factor to put big tasks in shared backlog. We have one shared backlog, and all the bigger tasks go there, and we want to work on each other's tasks. Also, we want to encourage developers to work on infrastructure to help us to speed up their changes they want to introduce. So, cool. Having that was easy. Yeah, and then I got the most important question: how would you explain this concept to the people without making this kind of a talk every second day? So I started writing a documentation, a manual. After 14 pages, I gave up. Then I wanted to provide an example, use cases and scenarios, how to behave to show the pattern. It also did not end up well. And then I went back to the concept I did not like in the past. It was called tenets. Tenets are actually universal principles to follow, which are tiebreakers. They should help you solve a problem, but they do not tell you the specific way to do it. So to describe how we want to work, I have come up with 5 tenets. So let's go through them quickly. First, we celebrate knowledge sharing, both inside the team and with developers. So we want to share knowledge. This is what we want to emphasize. 2, everybody is equal. We don't favor anyone. So now that we are a separate group of consultants, teams will approach us. And we all know that in every company, in every organization, we have teams that are very needy for ops resources, and they might approach you every day, every second day, requesting new stuff and having the big urge to have it as fast as possible. No, we want to treat everybody as equal and have equal time slot for everyone. We are always open to any problems and questions people come to us with. We want to find the best possible solution. So we do not require teams to send us ticket. We've clearly defined what they do. They can approach us. They have their contact people. They can go to them, have a talk, and basically come with the problem and come back with a solution. We also want to get to the bottom of the problem, because sometimes what team needs is not what they want, and we need to challenge them. I have my personal example that one developer approached me asking for a new Elasticsearch cluster, but then he asked me to have one index in it. Actually, we do not need an indexing, and he kept explaining, and then I asked him, okay, but basically what you need is a MongoDB. Well, yes, he said. So I said, so why do you want Elasticsearch? And he replied, I have written the other application last week. It's using Elasticsearch, and it does basically a very same logic. So if I clone this application, I have the new feature implemented in no time. Yeah. So this is where we need to be assertive. And 5, we do not want to limit ourselves to fixing the issues. We consult, we want to train people and prepare tools to speed the process. So if we face upgrading the same cluster over and over again, we just end up setting up tasks to create tooling for that. So, okay. It was enough. I presented it to some people. They found it inspiring, and they knew how to do it. And then we decided to go with choosing a name. And now the most interesting part. Why Panda? Panda is my personal experience. When my son was born, I had many sleepless nights, and my eyes became very shady, and I was walking like a zombie, eating stuff all around. So they started to call me Panda Ops instead of DevOps. And I really, really wanted to name this project Panda. So my team lead told me, okay, if you find a reasonable development of this acronym, we can do it. It took me 4 days, and I did it. It stands for Performing a Natural DevOps Adaptation. So now I'm a Panda. Unfortunately, I work for a German company, and their sense of humor is limited. So it's not my official position on the contract. Okay, getting serious again. So we know what we want to do, we know how we want to work, and now we need to convince the management that it will pay off. The easiest way was to create an experiment, define some metrics, and check it. So we chose teams from Poznań because they were already accustomed with that type of work. We chose a few teams from Switzerland office, and we defined metrics. Metrics were 2 categories: soft, like happiness of developers, happiness of pandas, workload distribution. So the ratio of tasks you take, like your contact team tasks versus, let's call it foreign tasks, and the resolution time, what should not be too much. And I'm happy that I never defined it hard because it was really fluctuating. And we had also hard metrics. So if we face severe complaints, we need to cut the experiment. Because if we put in danger any of the business goals, then it's not that good of an idea. And we gave ourselves 3 months to do it. And right before the end of the experiment period, I decided to send out the survey. And the responses were: first, we did not get any negative feedback about the new setup, so no hard requirements. 82% of people responded to prefer the new setup over the old one, so it was cool. And many of the other 18% commented that they actually don't see any difference. So we did not make it worse. It's cool. Also, some teams that did not take part in the experiment approached us asking to be part of it. Also, one funny thing to mention was that when we started the experiment, it was just after the Easter break, and many of the people in my newly formed team were on vacation. Actually, many is everyone except of me. So 3 days after we started the experiment, CTO approached me and asked, hey, how is the new experiment going? How is the new team? And I said, great, I'm the only one. Then, the week after they came back, so I had, okay, now we go full speed. I need to show the management that my project is cool. And I did not foresee that many of the people had like long-running tasks from the previous setup, and I needed to let them finish those. Because if I tell them to drop everything they did before and move to the Panda backlog, then I would face the hard metrics. So people being severely complaining. So the decision was, we did a full rollout. We acquired more pandas to the team, and we introduced a new role, Pool Panda, which has a nice name because it suggests that this is a panda to sit by the pool and have a drink. Actually, this is a panda that doesn't have a contact team. So this person works with the shared backlog. So quickly, because I think I'm running a bit out of time, how do we do stuff? So we have our shared backlog in Jira because the company uses Jira mostly, so we can link tasks together. We have a Kanban board, and we decided to work in the Kanban mode. We also always pick first from the selected column. It can be your contact task, it can be a foreign one. It's a risk, you have to take it. Also, when we have a backlog, and everyone can post a task to the backlog, create it. During our bi-weekly stand-up meetings, we do something I call post-refinement. So the contact Panda is responsible for shaping the description of the task. And when we, on the stand-up meeting, pull the task from Backlog to select it, we open it, read it, and it has to be clear for everyone in the team what needs to be done. There should be no doubt. If not, task goes back to the backlog, and the responsible person needs to fix that because we will not start the work. The most popular task we face is how to create a new cluster in Google Cloud, to upgrade the cluster, set up monitoring, and this is something we are trying to automate. We are also moving our build infrastructure to the cloud. So this is also something we need to pay closer attention to, especially when we have legacy build servers that many people would like to just take and put it in Google, take 2 steps away and not breathe because it might break. We need to challenge ourselves and just tear the build server apart, figure out which build jobs are needed and move those, because we don't want to have servers running in the cloud burning money and not providing any value. Most popular quick wins we are having. First, reboot Jenkins. It's very common. Second, how to garbage collect packages generated by Nix. Yes, we have it. Also, my deployed service is not visible. Why is not visible? Because it's running a rolling restart loop in Kubernetes. Why is that? Did you check the logs? No. So we are checking the logs. Oh, it cannot start. Oh, I made a typo. Oh, sorry. And then we help people set proper CI/CD pipelines to incorporate some smoke tests to just run the container to see if it actually starts and lasts. And my absolute favorite, how do I find Service X? So how do I find Grafana? Where is Prometheus stuff? I tried to set up a central documentation to gather all the links, but it just introduced another question. If somebody asks me, where is Prometheus? I say, in the general documentation. Where is general documentation? And then I send the link. So we dropped the general documentation. Improvement projects. I already spoke about it. So we are trying to do automation about the cluster creation, recreation, and upgrades. We are also trying to find alternative decentralized CI/CD solutions. We are evaluating drone.io. So we want to have something that provides description of a build pipeline, not only build steps like in Jenkins pipeline plugin, but also description of the build environment, and drone supports that, but it's still in the testing phase. And some reflections after 12 months of this setup being introduced. So we experienced a boost in knowledge sharing. Now we are very confident that we can take over any other team, and actually no knowledge transfer is needed. If one of us goes on a vacation, we just say this and tell our contact teams to actually ask on the Slack channel, Team Panda, their question, and someone will surely help them. Shared backlog gave us the opportunity to work for every team, on tasks of every team, and we are also early adopters of the new tools and technologies. So we have this dedicated team to just handle Kubernetes cluster, and this team gives us the privilege to be the first one to be trained, so we can take the knowledge further to the teams. Also, my reflections show some downsides of it. So the mindset needs to be constantly reminded. The design is very nice. We have this cooperation mode, consulting mode, challenging teams, but very often our team members fall back to this generic way of working that incorporates taking the task, doing the task, submitting the task. And it's so easy that people like subconsciously try to fall back to it. We also lack a bit in area of pairing and working with developers. I was falsely assuming that developers would be interested in modifying the infrastructure. After all, we have everything defined in a code. We have immutable infrastructure plus infrastructure as a code. but we are lacking this. And we have not enough Kaizen, so the small improvement steps. We are trying to do it. We have weekly meetings, trying to identify small areas where we want to improve and alter our way of working, but it's still not that well. And the future. So in the future, after we finish the main step of moving the built infrastructure, we want to focus on the critical parts and automate them, make them more secure. Also, we want to develop more self-service tools. So no longer we are asked to set up a MongoDB instance. We want to give a tool to actually do it automatically. Also, we are trying to get more involved into developing a code. So we want to focus on application reliability that requires us to learn more how to write a secure code. And this is also something we need to learn a bit because we mostly originate from operations. And of course, as we are never enough, we need more pandas. We need to hire them internally or externally. And I would really love to have some Panda team members originating from development because we are very often lacking this mindset. Okay. So this is it. And now I will check my phone for questions.
Yeah, this is a funny situation. Lukasz is holding the Slido account.
So let me now ask myself a question. Wait for it. One moment. Okay, we have two questions. Who is managing Jira tasks? I am. So I am called the Big Panda. That means I'm a coaching leader of the team. And apart from being an actual contact person to some development teams, I'm also organizing the backlog and coordinating all the stuff concerning the managing the Jira tasks. How many pandas do you currently have? Right now we have 7 pandas, including me. So we are 7 people and counting. How do you manage your team capacity? Any challenges regarding that? This is a tricky question because we have in the companies implemented an OKR process. Every quarter we have a slightly different scope of work. Also, teams might change the setup over time, especially during the New Year period. And sometimes we have enough people for the teams. Sometimes teams split into 2 or 3, and we need to cover that. So we need to be flexible about that. We deal with the capacity problems by sharing the workload, if that was the question. So sometimes we have people handling 4 teams, and in that case, the person is just delegating more work to the shared backlog than doing it on his own. Let's see if any more questions. Who replaces Big Panda during holiday? So there is a nice webpage called wheeldecide.com where I have every name, and we just spin the wheel of fortune, and the temporary Big Panda is being chosen. How do you manage internal tasks? I still have 1 minute. We just define it like any other. So if we have the backlog here, and we have brackets with labels referring to team. So Panda team is just yet another team. So we take our place in the rotation, and the internal tasks are just Panda tasks. Okay, I think that's all.
All right, thank you very much.